Welcome to Light Over Heat with Professor David Yamani. This is a bonus video I'm posting as a follow-up to my previous video about a Boston Globe essay called Living with a Gun. In Ieva Jusionyte's essay in the Boston Globe, she talks about the experience of living with a gun, and she very importantly concludes that handful of steel in my dresser has never been an ordinary object. It may not be directly implicated, but is it part of the problem? Am I? And I think that question that she asks is really significant, and it's a question that I've asked myself before. And in fact, last November, I wrote a blog post in which I thought about my own complicity, the issue of my own complicity in being a gun owner. And so on this video, I want to just read that blog post. So if you're not interested in hearing me read the blog post, or if you've already read the blog post, that's all that this is going to be. But if you aren't familiar with this post, please hear what I have to say. It deals with this issue of gun owner complicity that I think Ieva Jusionyte is grappling with in her essay. So I title my blog post, I've been thinking about this gun I own and asking myself questions about responsibility. I've been thinking about this gun I own. I don't need it, but I enjoy it and I use it responsibly, even though I know others do not. Guns are a leading risk factor for homicide and suicide. They claim tens of thousands of lives annually. They are implicated in social ills like crime, criminal violence, child abuse, intimate partner violence, and many other adverse individual and social outcomes. They are easy to get in most places in the United States, limited only by how much money you have to spend. This leads me to ask the following questions. When I use this gun, responsibly and unproblematically, should I feel complicit because others do not? Am I morally obligated to push for greater regulation on buying and using it because others misuse it? Should I feel obligated as a good citizen to give it up, knowing that it is associated with death, injury, and abuse? Am I putting my individual rights before the common good? Actually, when I wrote those words, I wasn't thinking about a gun I own. I was thinking about all of the alcohol I own and drink. I don't need it, but I enjoy it and use it responsibly, even though I know others do not. Alcohol is a leading risk factor for homicide and suicide. It claims some 140,000 lives annually, more than guns, in fact. It is implicated in social ills like crime, criminal violence, child abuse, intimate partner violence, and many other adverse individual and social outcomes. It is extremely easy to get in most places in the United States, easier than guns, in fact, limited only by how much money you have to spend. And this leads me to ask the following questions. When I use alcohol responsibly and problematically, should I feel complicit because others do not? Am I morally obligated to push for greater regulation on buying and using it because others misuse it? Should I feel obligated as a good citizen to give it up, knowing that it is associated with death, injury, and abuse? Am I putting my individual rights before the common good? Last weekend, I went on a writing retreat to finish the manuscript revisions for my book, Gun Curious. I got through the preface and 8 of the 10 chapters. I didn't make it to the conclusion, but I also skipped a chapter in the middle. I revised the introduction, then chapters 1 to 3, then chapters 5 to 8, and I skipped chapter 4. Chapter 4 is called Living with AR-15s. I left for my retreat on Thursday, October 26th. On Wednesday, October 25th, a gunman with an AR pattern rifle killed 18 people in a Lewiston, Maine bowling alley and bar. The entire issue of guns in American society is fraught, having become a political wedge issue the AR-15 in particular. So fraught, in fact, that I thought about dropping the AR-15 chapter from my book altogether. What good can come from me trying to write thoughtfully about an issue that is so emotional? And rightfully emotional, because the sight of someone walking into a bowling alley with a rifle and shooting people is sickening. Full stop. In addition to being awful, mass public shootings like Lewiston and Uvalde and El Paso and Sutherland Springs and Sandy Hook and elsewhere raise a lot of questions. I try to answer some of them in my chapter, the central question being, why do civilians own AR-15s? Even closer to home, why do I own an AR-15? This returns me to the thought experiment above about owning a particular gun and using alcohol. What responsibility do I have as a citizen for the havoc and harm caused by other people who use these things harmfully and irresponsibly? Should I voluntarily give up this socially evil product for the good of my fellow citizens? Should I advocate for laws prohibiting ownership of a product responsible for the death of hundreds of people annually in the case of AR-15s, or 100,000 people annually in the case of alcohol? I know it makes a difference emotionally, but in the final analysis, does it make a difference whether the dangerous product kills fast or slow? That is a sincere question, one of many about guns, alcohol, and harm that keep me up at night as I think about living with AR-15s.